The Rescuers Down Under was released in 1990 and was directed by Hindle Batoy and Mike Gabriel and is the 29th Disney animated feature film and follows Rescue Aid Society agents Miss Bianca and Bernard, who race to Australia to save a little boy and a rare golden eagle from a murderous poacher. Guys, I'm sorry that this review is coming to you a little bit late. This was originally something I was going to film a few weeks back. However, vacation got in the way, but I am finally here to talk about this film, and I'm excited because I am a huge fan of the original Rescuers. If you recall my previous review on that original film, I absolutely adore that film. Yes, I did grow up with it, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. But I loved the darkness of that story. I really enjoyed the characters and the animation style that Disney was using at the time. I think really fits with that film in particular. You get this darkness that really works for that era of Disney and the story in particular that they were trying to tell. And then you contrast that with this movie style, which is a lot brighter, traditionally animated in just beautiful ways. But we will be getting into the animation soon enough. This is a very interesting film, though, that I'm excited to talk about because it truly is the first animated Disney sequel to be released theatrically. We wouldn't get this kind of thing for a while because a lot of the Disney animated sequels would be relegated to direct-to-video movies, and it wouldn't be until much, much later that we would truly get official sequels like this one. And it's so strange to me that it's The Rescuers Down Under that gets to be the first Disney animated sequel to be released theatrically, which is really cool here. So why is that? Well, The Rescuers, the first film that is, was a huge popular film for Disney. It did really well not only in theaters, it did well in re-releases and also on home video, making it one of the more successful Disney films to come out in that period of time. And so work had started to begin on a sequel because they saw how profitable that first film was in the long run. And so a sequel was greenlit, and this is a very interesting sequel because it comes right between The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, two huge juggernauts of the Renaissance period of Disney. And it's interesting because it really doesn't fit in line with the other films of this time period. And there are a lot of things that you can pinpoint that make it really not fit. But it's still a part of the Disney Renaissance nonetheless. It's just a film that kind of belongs in the previous era, the transitional era. However, because of the way it released right after The Little Mermaid, despite it being worked on way before The Little Mermaid was even conceived. So, The Rescuers Down Under kind of falls more in line with things such as The Great Mouse Detective and Oliver and Company, those stepping stones that were leading Disney in the right direction to eventually make films such as The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. So, if you think about it like that, you might understand a little bit more why this is one of the black sheeps of the Disney Renaissance, and it's still worth looking at even today, especially for its use of the cap system. This is an animation process that makes for one of the most beautiful animated films that I have ever seen, and it is really The Rescuers Down Under's claim to fame for the most part, because the animation is truly the star of this. If you just look at those flying scenes with Cody and the eagle in the beginning of the film, they are absolutely breathtaking. There is nothing quite like this. In fact, there's nothing quite like it in the rest of the Disney Renaissance. There is beautiful animation throughout this entire era, but there's things that just don't look as epic and as grand as what is displayed here. It is beautiful to watch. The Rescuers teams up everybody that we know and love from the first Rescuers and evolves the world and the story. And it's fun to see these characters once again. I absolutely love Bianca and Bernard. I think they are really great protagonists for a Disney film. They just have a great likability to them, and it's great seeing them here, voiced by the same people that immortalized them in the very first film. And we also get George C. Scott as the villain McLeach, who is a fantastic presence. This is a great villain. He is evil incarnate. He really doesn't care about not only nature, but people around him, willing to put this one child in just the worst of dangers. He is incredibly fun, and I like how the animation actually kind of looks like George C. Scott in a lot of ways. I don't know if that was on purpose or if that's just how he was created, but he reminds me a lot of George C. Scott in a very interesting way. But this movie is a ton of fun. It has some really lighthearted moments, some great set pieces, some beautiful animation. However, for me personally, it just does not hit as hard as that original film. I think the darkness of the original film's story is a lot more emotionally engaging, whereas this is a fun ride to be on. The animation truly puts you in the Australian outback, and that is really cool. The characters are fun as always. However, even though I think the animation is beautiful, I just don't know if it really suits the Rescuers in particular. And that just might be me thinking of how the original film is with its more scratchy look. But to me, it's just weird seeing these characters in HD, in just clean, beautiful, pristine animation through the CAP system. That is not to say that none of that is bad. It is gorgeous. However, it's something that I prefer over this film, and I just ultimately prefer the first film to this. However, I think you can make a case that this film is better than the first film. It just goes down to what your tastes are. You can get swept up into the adventure of this movie. And it's just the same with the first film. You can get swept up in that story, the darkness within it. And I think you have a case for why one film is better than the other, and nobody in particular is really all that wrong. The Rescuers Down Under is a solid film. However, despite the animation, the film just really isn't all that memorable to me. I kind of forget about it as I'm watching it, and it doesn't have a lasting impact except for those several scenes that I can pinpoint where the animation just sweeps you off your feet. Those flying scenes, again, are incredible to watch. But the rest of the film just really doesn't stick with me like the first film. But it does have those wonderful characters, and I love seeing them again. And I'm just shocked and also glad that this film exists. I didn't know that this movie existed throughout my entire childhood. I watched the first Rescuers so many times, but it wasn't until years later that I realized this movie existed. I just never came across it. And the fact that it exists at all is just so intriguing to me. The fact that they were willing to make a sequel to The Rescuers and be this ambitious with it is really something. And it's why this film holds a special place for a lot of people and why it has been getting a lot more love in recent years. It is worth seeing. It is ambitious. It is beautiful. And it's ultimately a really fun ride that you have to see to believe. So anyway, guys, with all of that said, I'm going to give The Rescuers Down Under a 7 out of 10. Well, I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I am excited to continue my journey with the Disney Renaissance. So look forward to my review of Beauty and the Beast coming in the next few weeks. We don't have much longer until that. I'm excited to finally talk about that film, but as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and stay positive.